They're bad. Three, two, one. Yo, yo, yo. Or should I say ho, ho, ho to all you KBS savages that are tuned in live for our first simulcast in a long, long time. 'Twas the night before Christmas we went simulcasting, and in a red and white suit, across the sky, he went blasting. Yes, indeed. We're here, we're live, and we're going to be joining Truth Frequency Radio in just a moment. And it's not just me here today, and it's not just SpongeBob SquarePants, or should I call him SpongeBob Fairy Pants, because he's our Christmas fairy on the tree. I have got the man, the myth, the legend, Naysay. How you doing, brother? And we've got about 30 seconds before we join the network, and we do my thing, man. We'll get into the Christmas woo.
SpongeBob, what are we gonna do today?
I've got him on top of the tree, Kev. I've got Christmas lights all around you. You look very fancy indeed. And I've got SpongeBob dancing away on top of the tree with his Christmas hat on. Very festive, obviously. And I hope everyone really appreciated the YouTube-approved Christmas songs on the way in today. Very warm, loving, family-type music this Christmas. And now, what we're going to do, like old times, boom. Oh, nerves here, folks. Here we go. We're going live to the mothership. Yes, indeed. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Or should I say, Happy Christmas Eve. Or, if you're in Australia, or you've already swapped on over the dateline into Christmas Day, a very, very Merry Christmas to all of you, because this is the Kev Baker Show, and we're coming to you live this Christmas Eve from the smart city of Glasgow in the heartland of Scotland. And yes, we've got listeners in Australia. We go all the way to Alaska, over to Norway, back to Nebraska, and we do that thanks to Truth Frequency Radio Network. And today, it's like a blast from the past. It really is. It really is a Christmas special, because we are simulcasting over on the Kev Baker Show 2 YouTube channel as well. Hey, it's Christmas. Come on. You need to kind of let everyone join the fun on Christmas. We can all gather around our digital little fire here, and we're going to tell some Christmas stories, some ghost stories, get into some woo. And Kevin, when me and you get together, even if we were to, God forbid, plan any of this, there wouldn't be any point, right? Because me and you, we just kind of shoot from the hip. And where we go, neither of us know. Wouldn't you agree?
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the dwelling, in the darkness, the black ooze was swelling, waiting for the moment to come out of the abyss. So gather together, children, 'cause you don't want to miss this special presentation with the Kev Baker Show, where we can warn you about the things that we know about the black goo and what it can do to not only me, but also you.
You
Merry
said black
Christmas to
goo.
all.
You said black goo. This is what I say to black goo. Keep your mind open. Keep looking for the woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo. There you go, Kev. There you go. Yes, indeedy.
Well, especially on these darkness of the winter solstice of this festive time. Happy Christ Mass and holy dazed and confused about what's going on. But what do I know? I'm the stupidest man I know.
I love this time of year, Kev. I really do. This has been a heck of a year, and it's been a weird Christmas. But today, I really got back into the swing of it. The tunes blaring, had all the Christmas music on. I had my son absolutely cringing. He was hiding away in the bedroom when his mum came in from work. He was telling his mum, "Oh, you need to get a grip of him. He's playing all this crappy music." But you know, as you get older, Christmas becomes very much a nostalgic type of event. For me, anyway, it kind of throws me back. I like to remember Christmases gone by. Sometimes when you listen to the music, that'll spur a memory of Christmases gone by. I don't know. It's just a really cool time of year. I like it. I know some people absolutely despise it, but what do you like? What do you like about this time of year, Kev? What is it for you? If you had to pick a couple of things out, I mean, what is it you look forward to? Because there's enough doom and gloom in the world. We're gonna keep it positive today, aren't we, Kev? We're gonna try.
I love the opportunity to put up the pagan tree with my daughters. Unfortunately, this year we did not get the popcorn garland around it. And then also we have a tradition of where we put up my grandmother's Christmas village. We have some very old school ceramic Christmas village that we put up around the tree and the decorations. And so, you know, and the stockings were hung, no chimney, without a care, in the hope that St. Nicholas is going to drop some fungi. Or no, they're too young for that. But find some special gifts in their stockings.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You know, that's the one thing. Anyone out there, if you've got a young child this Christmas, make the most of it. Make the most of it. They grow up far too quickly. And I was thinking that today when I was watching some of the TV ads in between the kind of the movies and the music that was on. And I was thinking about all the toys and things. I was thinking back to Kevin when he was wee, certain specific Christmases and things like that. Time certainly does fly, Kevin. You have to make the most of these times, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember the old claymation Christmas classics? Like Santa Claus Coming to Town, and It Was a Year Without a Santa Claus.
I know
Rudolph.
of these things. I'm not sure this claymation thing that you mentioned. Maybe that's an American thing.
What was that? Stop motion. And that's one thing that me and my girls, we watch. And it's so funny when you have these new conspiracy theory glasses on and you see all of these strange metaphors and iconography throughout these claymation children's stories, you know. And then especially if you think of that classic A Christmas Story, where Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, Charles Dickens, when he gets met by the ghost of Christmas past and the ghost of Christmas future and the ghost of Christmas present, you know. So it's kind of bringing you through that whole realm of the entity's existence, you know. So what a better time than to use these holy days to make a reflection of where is your heart. Is it like the Grinch, where it's 10 sizes too small? Or is it like the Who's of Whovilles?
Funny you mentioned the Grinch. That's what I was telling Disco before we went live today. That's what Anne unaffectionately calls my ex-girlfriend, the Grinch. It's allegedly she might look a little bit like the modern day Grinch in one of the movies. Hey, I don't know, but it always makes me laugh anytime I hear the Grinch. Anyway, And that's what I think of. But you mentioned the pagan tree. Well, I thought, what better way to start our Christmas special with a little triggery story? I noticed it was quite triggery the other day, but we'll get into this as well. It's just a quick little article here about Merry Witchmas. It's paganism, witchcraft, and the holidays. You'll like this, Kev. It says every year millions of people all across the world celebrate Christmas, and it's easily one of the most popular holidays. For many people, the history of Christmas is directly associated with the birth of Christ. And that's as far back as it goes. Yet many of the traditions practiced during Christmas time have origins dating back much further than the beginnings of Christianity. So it goes on then to talk about Christmas and astrology. In nearly all religions, there are celebrations for the changing of the seasons. Most people's inner clocks are set to a cycle that has its base in the physical effect the change of the seasons has on human bodies. We observe the winter as our time for slowing down, feasting, taking stock, spending time with family, and worshipping our deities of choice when applicable. There is no coincidence, or this is no coincidence. Indeed, it is constant across many cultures, and as much as it relies upon the traditions of human civilization, it relies also upon the stars in the sky. And while most meteorologists consider December the 1st to be the first day of winter, for most everyone else, and I'm glad it just says most, it's the December the 21st date. And I laugh there because me and Kev, we often talk about the solstice and it not being the 21st, right, Kev? But I'll let you come back to that. I'll let you come back to it. This is the shortest day and the longest night of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, and it marks the first day of the winter solstice, which lasts until the 25th. Now, solstice is celebrated in various ways across most religions. Early Europeans celebrated it as the rebirth of the sun and the return of the longer days, while German pagans had Yule and what amounted to their own Santa in Odin, who brought good for some and to others ill, but who bore more than a striking resemblance to Mr. Claus, the big red fella, as I like to call him. The death of Christ and the 3 days it takes him to rise again are considered astrologically significant, as are the 3 days leading into Christmas. Now, in the words of occultist um, Unique Divination, I think that's the dude's name anyway. The most important aspect of Christmas would be the 22nd to the 25th, which is pretty much how the Christians think. The sun is at its lowest point and then it comes up. It takes 3 days to come back, and it comes back on the 25th. So a lot of Christianity is sun worship, and that's what that comes from. Now, Kevin, let's just butt in there because our friend Jimmy the other night, he made a good point. You know, the whole the cross, the sun dying for 3 days and then rising again. I would more attach that kind of thing to Easter and the Easter period, wouldn't you?
Well, if we look at the whole pagan upcoming of these holy days, where Christianity or Constantine was trying to bring the monotheism about, where the other sects, SECT, or religions of the time utilized this solstice as their worship, their rituals, their ceremonies. And it is easier if we can overlap them for people to accept them and, gradually change the line, or drawing the line in the sand. And if we look at March, being Easter, where that pivotal moment of where
Ishtar.
exactly, where the equator, where the sun is equal day and equal night of the equinox, because a lot of the indigenous peoples around the world, spring was their time of the new beginning, of the new year. My ancestors, we celebrated the new year at the equinox because that's when things were in balance between the two periods of the longest day or the shortest day. Longest day being in the middle of summer, shortest day being in the middle of winter. Now, this only goes for the northern hemisphere because, as our Aussie friends din ende, they have
Down
their
under, Bruce and Sheila and Luna, Donnie.
right.
Yep. Jess. Yep. See, we've got
Yep.
it sussed, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, so they have that kind of dichotomy, which of course is wonderful for the powers that should not be if they can get us in that oscillation from one extreme to the other, instead of getting synchronized with the equinox, where balance is maintained and hopefully kept. But unfortunately, with the way that the piston goes or the heartbeat goes, we need that dichotomy because that's what drives the machine.
Well, it's okay,
That
dude, because
little chug chug.
I figured out. I think we're going from one of the inward pushes of the piston to a really positive outward expression of your piston there. We're about to win. That's my prediction for 2021. But I'm gonna crack on with this story, right? I want to get through this before the break, and then after the break, I found some weird Christmas woo. You knew I would find weird Christmas woo. It's what we do here. But this is uber weird. So we'll get back into this one here for now. It says, if I bring it up again here, as far as why it's important to acknowledge winter and celebrate its coming, winter will almost invariably slow your body down as we all fall into the natural dormancy of the season and try to rest in preparation for more chaotic spring. The celebration of winter, divination explained, if you're into tarot, is the death card. Things are dying and decaying. Things are dormant. And as far as spirituality is concerned, it's a time to reflect. It's a time to go in. It's a time to do some inner work, transformation. Things were alive. Now animals are sleeping and hibernating. Everybody's inside. It's an end to a cycle. People kind of want things to stay the same, but things don't stay the same. Even within the season, things change. Folks, as I was reading that there, it was quite easy to forget we were talking just about Christmas, wasn't it? And we're talking about going through great changes in the world right now. We really are. And if you listen to this here, he says, things are dormant. And as far as spirituality is concerned, it's a time to reflect. It's a time to go in and do some inner work. We've heard that on the show recently from Mary, and we'll get Kevin to talk about what he was doing in a moment. But listen to the end of this as well. And think about the bigger picture of the world. Transformation. Things were alive, and now animals are sleeping and hibernating, and everybody's inside. It's an end to a cycle. People kind of want things to stay the same, but things don't stay the same. Even within the season, things change. Pretty profound that, Kev. Pretty profound.
Well, if there's one absolute constant in this existence, is that things change depending on the macrocosm and the microcosm, depending on the perspective that you want to take the opportunity to gander at. And as we stated the other day with Jimmy Jean, we can make that proclamation at any moment that this is the moment that I'm going to change, where I am no longer going to give in to the negativity. I'm going to do my best to either transmute negativity into positivity or minimally neutralize it. And this can be on any aspect of the existence, because as long as we are attempting to create more positivity than negativity, how can we collectively go wrong?
Very, very well said. And for some reason, I just want to throw in nativity because it rhymes with what you're talking about with positivity, negativity, and it's Christmas. So it's nativity. Okay, it was a crap joke, but hey, here we go. Anyway, Saturnalia's influence on Christmas. Oh, here we go, Kev. Ooga booga. Many people associate Christmas with the birth of Christ for perhaps obvious reasons, but the history Christmas celebration certainly predates the birth of Christ. Previous observations of the solstice have inspired Christmas include the Roman Saturnalia, lasting from the 17th to the 23rd of December and celebrating the agricultural god Saturn. Gift giving was an essential staple of Saturnalia. It was likewise a celebration of light, later known as the birthday of the unconquerable sun, in reference to Sol Invictus, another sun-based deity. During Saturnalia, wreaths were used to symbolize never-ending life. It's difficult to tell exactly where the idea of keeping trees came from, but it's obvious that the modern-day invention of the Christmas tree in Renaissance-era Germany was hardly the beginning of the custom, which is believed to date back at least as far as ancient Egypt. At least as far, folks. The reformer Martin Luther is believed to have been the first to add candles to the Christmas tree, which is terrifying to even consider in a time with no fire extinguishers or smoke alarms, but regardless, was the beginning of the contemporary Christmas lights. Likewise, however, the celebration of light and the use of candles is common across religions. It says Christmas replaces Saturnalia. It's difficult to know when exactly Christians began celebrating Christmas, but the first recorded instance of the holiday was by 4th century Roman Christians. They are generally known to be the first to celebrate Christmas specifically on the 25th of December as well, and Christians had been persecuted, and bad things happened to them in Rome until under Constantine Christianity was legalized. This was also around the time of the first known use of the word pagan, which was apparently appointed to Romans practicing polytheism by Christians as a derogatory term, and was ultimately used to villainize a large portion of the Roman population as Christianity became the dominant religion. Parallels can also be drawn between the Persian sun god Mithra and Jesus. Mithra's birthday was also believed to be, coincidence, December the 25th. Other similarities prevail between them, such as their mutual status as a patient and benevolent protector of life. Mithraism was its own practice, and the worship of Mithra was prevalent during the rise of Christianity, although it would ultimately become more obscure over time. Much like the tree, there is no tracing the origins of solstice-based songs, but Christmas hymns are known to date back as early as the first Christmas celebrations. Carols that are well known to us today are Latin songs that were popularized in the 16th century in a music book called Pae Cantiones. But the true origins of the songs are unknown, and many of them are believed to be much older than suspected. Later, in the 19th and 20th centuries, The popularity of mass-produced Christmas music books led to a resurgence of interest in caroling, and the tradition bloomed anew. Whatever your feelings on Christmas, there's no denying the obvious human need to acknowledge the shift from autumn to winter and our anticipation for spring. In fact, the distance our present practices put between the holiday and its ancient origins may indicate a deeper societal problem. When asked what people get wrong about the holidays and their history, and even debt to the pagan rituals, unique deviation or divination replied, and that's the occultist dude that they were talking about. There's still a lot of people that are just kind of stuck in their ways and don't want to look into anything. Well, that wouldn't be any of us, folks, right? We want to look into everything. It's labeled blasphemous. I've had people call me a devil worshipper, and I'm like, wait a minute. All I'm doing is worshiping seasons. That's the biggest misconception. Them not understanding the symbolism of things, but then again, this is esoteric or occult information, which pretty much means only a certain number of people will understand. I think that was quite a good little article there, Kev. I think that was quite a good little breakdown of some of the things going on. What do you think?
Well, I really enjoy the fact about the tree, the Christmas tree. From my research on it, one of the reasons that the whole mythos around the tree happened is because of those particular types of trees. They stayed green year round, so they gave the appearance of surviving during this time of coldness, where most things do hibernate, most things do go through that cycle of dying and rebirth when it comes to the plants and everything. But here we have this special tree that not only seemingly is alive during this time, but also when you talk about the Yule time or the Yule log, these are these trees that burned longer over the nighttime. So in this period of when we have the longest night of the year, you would want a log that burns slower and longer in order for it to light the darkness up. And the same goes with the Christmas candles, where you need light for the darkness, because us silly humans, we absolutely fear what we don't know, and what we don't know is what is within the darkness.
No,
So
it's in the
we
darkness
need.
we operate, Kev. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, folks. There we go. Now, obviously, we're still here. We're still on YouTube. Yeah, I've got to get back in the swing of this simulcasting, and people will say, but Kev, you do this every Friday when you do your Freaky Friday. I don't know. It's just a different, weird kind of feeling doing it on KBS again. But it's good, and I'm glad we're doing it. And Kev, I'm glad you're here to join me today. What are you going to be feasting on tomorrow? Anything special planned?
I am going to be actually eating healthy over the next 4 days. I don't have my daughters because of being ahead on the budget, which isn't always easy to do. I gave in to ordering out, and so I had bison burgers a couple days ago, and then yesterday we gave in to pizza.
You know,
And
that's
I
the one
should
thing I've
not.
missed this year, Kev. Sorry to cut you off there, but we have usually in Glasgow in particular, probably most places around the UK that I know of, they have like a Christmas market comes now. And you get the German sausages, the bratwursts, and all this good stuff, But there's usually a stand where you can get, and people are going to go, oh, Kev, that's terrible. You get kangaroo burger, you get buffalo burger, you get bison burgers, you name it, this thing's in a burger, right? And the smells, dude. I tell you, it's just something that it becomes part of Christmas. You walk through that and it's Christmas. It's like when you hear the Pogues. You know it's Christmas when you hear the Pogues, you know what I'm saying?
Is haggis, is that a Christmas meal, or is
Haggis,
that
no,
an
haggis is
all
an
the time meal?
all-year-round deli. It's a very very acquired taste you need for the haggis. Not even all Scottish people like haggis, to be honest with you. Me, I love haggis. We have it on Burns night. I feel totally un-Scottish now because I can't remember when Burns night is. I'm sure it's in January or something. Probably wrong. But yeah, the haggis is. Hey, listen, I love it. It's absolutely delightful. Have you ever tried it?
I would try it, but I've heard mixed feelings about it. But I would definitely give it a try.
It's like spicy oatmeal. That's basically it. Don't let the finer ingredients involved in the making of the haggis put you off in any way, shape, or form, Kev. Don't look into any of that. Just eat your haggis, have some neeps, which is some turnips, and some potatoes, and get ready, man. You're not going to be very sociable for about 3 days after it. You're talking about extreme flatulence. I think this was actually one of our ancient war tactics in Scotland. You know, we're like famous for lifting our kilts and baring our bums. I think this is where haggis came into it. Because if you're on haggis at the same time as doing this, you're going to be throwing violent weapons of war out there, Kev. Let me just tell you, that's like biological stuff you don't want to be messing with, you know?
Pre-war meal.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying, dude? I tell you, we're clever. We're clever up here, man. Very, very clever. But look, I'm watching the clock here, and we're going to be going back in a moment to Truth Frequency. Remember to tell everyone about tfrlive.com. Even if you don't like my show, I bet you, and I mean this, I can say this hand on heart, I can bet you there's a show on there that's going to talk about stuff that you absolutely love, because it covers everything. You're going to love some of the shows, you'll despise some of the shows, but that's what a true free speech place is all about. You hear all the different things going on, all different sides of the same story, and then some. That's what makes it just that little bitty more special. Here we go. There we go. We're back. We're live on our KBS Christmas Eve cracker. Yes, I am crackers. Both me and Dave Baker are off our head. Now, if you couldn't be there last night, check out Travis Short in the archive. He came on the second part of the show yesterday, and love hanging out with Travis. And if you're looking for some good Mothman woo, well, I tell you, don't look any further than yesterday's show. But I've got Kevin here with me today. Some call him Kevin, some call him Nacy, some call him a myth, some call him a legend, dude. The Christmas cracker show we're putting together here on the fly. I tell you what, man, it's going well so far.
Well, it's never a boring experience to have the fortunate of being here on TFR with you, my friend, and thank you for the opportunity.
And I'm having some, what Anne reliably informs me is some vintage cava. What year are we on here, Anne? A cheeky little 2019, I think. So yes, I am having a little drink with tonight's show. Hey, it's Christmas Eve. It's allowed. It really, really is. But I remember when I was younger, Kev, you know, one Christmas stands out in particular, right? My mum, she was working in the Forestry Commission at the time. I know. Back then, a woman working in the Forestry Commission? What? These were different times back then. But you see, Mama, she's like a lumberjack. You don't mess with Mama. Long story we could get into there. But it was one Christmas when we were just getting into the world of gaming consoles. Do you remember that, Kev? You'll remember that, right? You'll remember the world before gaming consoles and like pre and post gaming consoles. Like the Christmases before gaming consoles, I remember getting a Scalextrics, racing cars. I remember getting bikes, lots of bikes. Action Man, you would call it G.I. Joe over there. But then the Atari came out. Remember the Atari? So it was coming up to Christmas, and I knew my mum had got me the Atari, right? And it was one day I pulled the
sickie. Had that I think it was called the Intel, that just had the basic Pong
Got you.
It had like 3 different types of Pong games on it. That was the first one I remember us having.
Yeah, I remember
But
that. I do remember that. But I tell you what, this one here, right? I pulled the sickie, Kev. I done it, right? My mum's away out to work, and I'm thinking, awesome, Jack the man, awesome. I'll get looking for the Christmas presents, and we had this cupboard. We called it the glory hole, right? But it was only called the glory hole to keep me away from it. Keep me away from it because there was always goodies in it, and up on the top shelf. And you got to appreciate. I'm like the size of a hobbit right now, so the top shelf to me was like almost like looking like a steep cliff face away. But I knew, Kev, I knew if I could get up there and I could get moving around and rummaging around, I'd get this pesky thing. I'd see what I got for Christmas. So I got up there about lunchtime and I thought, oh, you dancer, brilliant. I'm up here. And there it was, the game console. And I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, oh, it's still 3 weeks to Christmas. I can't wait. I looked at the clock and I looked at the console. I looked at the clock again. I looked at the console. I thought, I've got plenty of time. I can have a quick game of this. I'll put it back in the box. You'll be none the wiser. You know how you think your mum, they don't know what you're doing. You know, they're none the wiser. They're stupid, right? They don't know. So I gets down, and that was a mission as well. I remember that. I almost broke my neck. But all chuffed with myself, got the box, opened it dead carefully. Made sure I remembered how everything was. Because this wasn't a world where you could just get your smartphone out and take pictures to remember it, right? Yeah, you had to use a bit of brain power, a bit of nous. So I got it all hooked up and I'm playing away, and I think it was the Smurfs. I'm pretty damn sure I was playing the Smurfs. I was jumping over fences as Papa Smurf, and I'd found a way that you could make him look like he was farting. And I remember laughing away at myself and playing away, and oh, you know it. Young Kev lost track of time, didn't he? And then all of a sudden I heard a car door. And bear in mind, where I lived, it's really quiet. There's not many people there. I mean, the car door going outside your house, that must be for you. Well, I never. Looks out the window and who's there? Oh, because it was near Christmas time, my mum had got off early from work. And there she was getting out the car, and I'm looking at the console, I'm looking at the car, and I'm thinking, oh no. Yeah, you better believe it. That didn't go down too well, Kev, must admit. But I was thinking about that today. Thinking about that, yeah. I ought to be a kid again on Christmas. I'll tell you, that's what it's all about, right? ZX81, he knows the game. He's saying, watch out for the spider. Exactly. Exactly. I know you've played that game now, ZX. I know you've played it. Yeah.
I hope that all the little kitties are already tucked into bed with thoughts of ginger plums dancing in their head. But I call it Santa Claus syndrome. And I'm going to share my experience as a kid when that great occult revealing the apocalypse of Santa Claus syndrome happened to me, if I may.
Yes,
One
please.
evening,
I'm going to sit back now. Oh, absolutely brilliant. Get ready for a Christmas story. Here we go, man.
and so little Naysay was on the fence of this jolly Kris Kringle Santa Claus. And so I provoked to my father that I'm going to stay up all evening and catch this individual that creeps in our house, because we had no chimney. And so my father was like, go ahead, stay up all night. Because in his mind, he's thinking, this kid isn't going to stay up all night. He'll crash by 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Lo and behold, the stubbornness of Naysay came through, and I stayed up all night. But unfortunately, while staying up all night, I ate an entire bag of oranges. And there is nothing that will loosen the GI tract like a full bag of oranges. And so by come morning dawn, I'm clenching because I need to use the bathroom immediately. And I'm just thinking, if I can hold out another 45 minutes, I got the dawn here and there is no Santa Claus. So sure enough, I couldn't wait anymore, and I ran into the bathroom. No less than a few moments of getting in the bathroom and me just letting the kraken release. All of a sudden I hear this, ho, ho, ho. And I'm like, no way. And so as a little kid, I'm trying to pinch a loaf, as we say. And so I'm rushing to get out.
Unrelease that kraken, Kev.
Right. Get the stopper going. And so I rush out of the bathroom, and then here's my father in the living room going, "You just missed him. Look out in the front yard." And I look out our front window, and there are two brand new Schwinn Independence 10-speed bicycles. So I run into me and my brother's bedroom, and I wake up my brother, and I'm like, "Santa Claus came!" And I'm all happy and excited and freaking out. And so we slip on our boots, and we go out to the front yard, and we find these brand new 10 speeds, and we're all excited. And then all of a sudden I look at the ground, and there was just a small dusting of snow from the previous night. And then I noticed these tracks alongside of these bike tire tracks coming to and from the garage, and from the garage to the front of the house. So then I go back into the house. I look down at the area where we would put our boots and our shoes for the winter, and sure enough, there are my father's boots, all wet from melting snow. And my dad had kind of like a smile on his face when we came in the door, and I looked down at his shoes, and I looked up at him, and I'm like, "You liar! You liar! You've lied to me!" And I started yelling at my dad. I'm like, "You make us sit on the bathtub edge with a bar of soap in our mouth when we are caught lying. And you've been lying to me how long?" And so I call it Santa Claus syndrome.
Yeah, Joe Joseph, this is where he really gets triggered by this. He's like, "That's terrible." It's one of the first things you teach a child, that it's okay to lie. And you make up this big story about the big red man. And I can't remember, Kev, but I had a kind of, not a similar one. And I think it was because, I think this was my mum's payback. If I can remember rightly, Christmases, they kind of blend together when you think back to when you're a child, but when I found out it wasn't like the actual quantum Santa visiting children all around the world that I once thought it was, and I think this was my mum's payback for going looking for the presents, I remember both laughing and crying at the same time. I'd be like crying my heart out, like proper sobbing, like when I lost Susie the cat a couple of weeks ago, proper sobbing. That's the kind of crying I was doing when I found out the kind of the shenanigans going on. But then I would burst out laughing as well. I thought it was hilarious, and it was like a mixture of, like, I don't know, joy, but again, somebody like that's not right. There is a syndrome. We live with this throughout our life, Kev. Maybe this is the problem: post-traumatic Santa syndrome.
Right, and
That's what it is, man. We're all off to a bad start, right?
Well, I think of it like we all have this little snow globe, and every now and then somebody comes up to your snow globe and they grab it and they just shake it vigorously, and everything is all chaos, and then pretty soon everything settles and everything's fine again, and then we just go about, and then all of a sudden that apocalyptic occurrence happens again, and somebody shakes up your snow globe where you're like, okay, it's just not the reality I thought it was. And we've had enough of that this last year.
Oh, absolutely. Now, somebody was asking, Joe Joseph, is he not on the show anymore? Spoke to Joe a couple of weekends ago now, maybe. Joe is doing fantastic. He is working like a Trojan. He truly, truly is. But I'm sure he'll come back on. Hopefully in the new year, he'll find time. We can hang out, we can geek out. But Joe's stepped back from the digital realm. Far more productive to spend your time out there in the real world, and Joe's definitely practicing a bit of that right now. But he's fine. No fallout, no big conspiracy, no drama. I know everyone on the tinterwebs loves a bit of drama, but nah, I can't add any to that story there. So listen, I've got another. I'll go to a little haunted Christmas story here, shall we, Kev? And then we'll discuss that. It's only a quick one. I found this on one of my favourite websites. We all know I'm a fan of the mysterious universe, right? But the haunted hotel in Wales has its own Christmas ghost. We often hear about like white ladies and all the kind of jazz like that. The headless monk, that kind of jazz. But this one here, it's a Christmas ghost. So it says the Cobden's Hotel in Capel Curig, probably butchered the pronunciation of that. in Wales was originally known as Tanwy Blitch, and I've butchered that, prior to Frank Cobden purchasing it in 1890. Now, Cobden was a famous cricketer in the late 1800s, and the hotel was then named after him. Now, eventually, the hotel was purchased by the Pett family, who ran it from 1970 to, way hey, good year, 1976. Big shout out to all my fellow 76ers out there. Laurie Pett and his two sisters spent part of their childhood at the hotel, and they weren't the only occupants on the property, as the location is said to be quite haunted by several ghosts. Laurie, who is now 57 years of age, said that many guests over the years had reported seeing ghosts at the hotel, specifically in the only room that had an outdoor balcony. Also, during our first Christmas there, the lights all suddenly went out. George, our chef who had worked at the Cobdens for many years, said it happened every year, and they called it the Christmas ghost, he claimed. When Laurie's father first bought the hotel, he hired a full-time builder who helped to refurbish the building and even stayed there during that time. He slept in a room in the hotel, and the only resident during the refurbishment, where he used to tell of scary happenings at night, noises and things out the corner of his eyes, and he was terrified to go to bed, he recalled. The hotel closed down in 2016, but Laurie went back to the building a few months ago, and even though it was all boarded up, he was able to see into the bar that his father built and took a picture through the window. And what he captured in the photograph was pretty creepy. After looking closer at the photo, he noticed what appeared to be two figures near the bar. Firstly, I don't know for sure. I'm aware of the power of suggestion and of light anomalies, so it might be nothing, he said, adding, but when I looked closely at the dark leather seat, or the small settee behind the white shadow, you can see two old men sat on the seat and their caps on, and the shirt and tie on one of them. They are very faint, but it's there. Now the picture, I'll bring that picture up. I'll post it over to the TFR chat room in just a moment, but it's a picture of a bar there. Oh, it looks kind of like the British Legion in the Fort Augustus where I grew up. And it looks like there's little things, but we'll go back to the story anyway. It says here, so, who were the figures in the picture? They could be any number of apparitions witnessed over the years, such as Miss Cobden, who was Frank Cobden's sister, whose ghost has allegedly been seen several times wearing green clothing. The spirit of Frank's daughter Evelyn has also been seen wandering around and been described as a benign presence. There is good news in regards to the building, as Jill Stubbington purchased the hotel last year and is currently renovating it into a 12-bedroom guest house. Kev, what do you make of all these old hotels, asylums, places like that seem to be absolutely riddled to the rafters with ghosty things, man? What's going on there?
I do absolutely believe in the supernatural aspect of, for lack of a better term, ghost or residual energy. I mean, many different names, and having a few experiences myself with that unknown entities, that definitely in these places where the feasibility of horrific endings come to fruition, I would definitely believe that possibility of that residual energy to occur. You know, especially in hospitals. I get so creeped out when I go to hospitals, like constantly
something
feeling
about that long corridors as well, and there's like something that does to our when it enters our brain. It's like when you look in a mirror into a mirror and you get that kind of infinite kind of stream going on. There's something that visual does. It puts us in some kind of frame of mind, Kev. It's weird, isn't it?
The creepiest of all time hospitals I've ever been in is in San Diego, California, at Balboa Hospital. It's like one of the oldest naval hospitals, and some of the old buildings there. Whoa, super creepy. And then I almost had the same feeling at the San Diego Hotel, downtown San Diego, the longest hotel there, where there was I can't remember what floor we were on, and the nostalgia would be like the 13th floor, but I don't remember it. But on our floor, the ice machine didn't work. And so we had to go down one level or up one level. And I went up the first time to go get ice. I went up one level to do it. And going up those stairs up to the next level, I was like, nope, ain't doing this again. No, thank you. And, whether just, because there's some times where I'll just go by my hunches. And if it's like saying this is a place where you do not want to be, I won't test fate at all.
No, and you get that feeling, Kev. That feeling's it's like a defense mechanism, and we get that feeling for a reason. I honestly believe that, dude, and we should listen. When our subconscious is picking up on something that's telling us there might be danger ahead, you should probably listen and get out of there, right? That's what's kept us alive as a species until now, when you say,
Well, I had like the most overwhelming one that I had. I was a freshman in high school in Indianapolis, and we had one of those under 18 like danceterias, for the kids. And a friend of mine drove us there, and it was me, him, and another buddy of mine and his girlfriend. So, of course, the partners were in the back seat, and I was in the passenger seat. We go to this danceteria, and we were partaking in stuff we shouldn't as minors. And my buddy wanted to leave, the driver. And so he came up to me, asked us, like, hey, let's get out of here. The minute he suggested leaving, I broke out in a sweat. I got nauseated, and my whole entity was saying, don't leave. And I said, yeah, let me go use the bathroom, and I'll be right back. And on the way to the bathroom, I'm like, okay, what do I do? How do I get out of this? I ran into a friend of mine who I knew had a vehicle, and I said, hey, can you give me a ride home? I'd like to stay. And she said, fine. And so I go use the bathroom. I remember putting water on my face and dampening off my face. Went up to my buddy and said, hey, I'm covered. You guys can go ahead and leave. The next day, 2 days later, I go over to his home, and his vehicle looks weird, but I don't notice anything really offsetting on it. And I go up to the front door. He opens up the front door, and he's in a arm sling, and he has a bandage on the side of his head. And I'm like, dude, what happened? And he's like, you didn't see my car? And I'm like, no. So we walk out to his car, and on the passenger side of the car was caved in where I would have been sitting. So we have this, up to where our little cul-de-sac area is, we have this kind of shortcut that is a gravel road. And sometimes we'll take this shortcut, and sometimes we go a little too fast on it and do a little fishtailing down it. But sometimes when they throw the new gravel on the road, it'll spray out onto the hardtop. And apparently he took the shortcut home, and it freshly had gravel on it. And so when he came off because sometimes people will run the stop sign because you can see like 100 yards to the left and right if a car is coming or not, to where you have to stop. And so he ran the stop sign and slid off the T intersection and slammed into a tree right where the passenger seat was, where I was sitting when we got there. So logically, I would have been sitting there too on the way back. And I had this premonition of not getting a ride back. So and just from that experience alone was enough for me to take that hindsight or that foreshadowing or inklings or whatever you want to call it, I'll take it to heart.
So where do you think that comes from, Kev? Do you think that's our, for lack of a better term, our higher self? Is our subconscious always viewing the future? Like I'm not saying we're aware of it, but it's almost like projecting to see if there's anything coming our way. It's pretty weird, dude, and it's not a very unfamiliar story. You hear a lot of people with similar type tales. They avoid something. I call it the final destination kind of effect. When you sense it's coming and you get out the way of it. Where do you think it's coming from?
Well, I do absolutely believe that time is an illusion, and we have been socially conditioned throughout our existence to be caught within the confines of that cell of the TikTok. And if that's true and time is an illusion, then literally there is no time. There is no past, there is no present, there is no future. And I think this is what is between our pineal gland and even in the center of a magnet, that existence of nothing yet everything, where the contrary, or in the quantification of it, when you go down to that smallest particulate, we notice that there's nothing and something that are coexisting simultaneously.
Yeah. See, we're coming up on the break, and I'll squeeze this in. I look at it slightly different, and I look at time and space as being the one thing. It's space-time. And in this third dimension, 5-sense physical reality that we vibrate on, and everything's physical around us and makes our plane, I think that and space and time, you can't separate any of that. We're almost trapped in time. We almost, we definitely perceive it all differently. One man can be doing something he enjoys doing, he loves doing it, and an hour flies by. And then you could be stuck listening to me, and it's a really bad show, and an hour really drags in, right? But, that we all perceive it differently. But then there's the other dimensions that definitely exist. And I think our consciousness, obviously, it's within us, but it's out with us as well. And I think it escapes the time barrier. And I think that's how it's able maybe to view future events that are just around the corner. Things that we pick up as that little spooky feeling. I don't know if I should be doing that. And like Kev said, you come to find just as well you didn't do that. Something bad was coming your way. How the hell does that happen? I tell you what, that is the magic and the wonder, not just of Christmas, Kev, but of reality. You see, reality, when you think about it, bigger picture, it is like Christmas every day because it's full of wonders and mysteries and magic. And we'll be back on the other side with some supernatural type content for your Christmas Eve special here on KBS. Yes, I forgot where I was going there. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. You got a favorite Christmas song?
The Pogues. Always the Pogues. What do you call it? The New York. Oh, what's the name of it? The name's gone. Fairy Tale of New York. That's it. Yeah.
Not recognizing it.
Oh, dude, I would love to play it. But funnily enough, it's the one with the Pogues and is it Kirsten? Oh, what's her name? I really ain't doing too well tonight. You would know it if you heard it, man. Everyone knows this one. He's like the really handsome Irish guy. What's his name? Shane McGowan.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
There isn't. I'm being highly sarcastic. What's your favorite Christmas one, man?
Well, the first one I think of is from A Year Without a Santa Claus, or Santa Claus is coming to town.
Wait a minute, Kevin. Right, this is a really momentous moment in time because I was thinking to myself today, how the hell do I go about this? Because really, it's Christmas Eve. Nobody's going to be about today. Nobody cares what the Kev Baker show's got to say. And I thought, well, I can't do 2 Christmas shows. I don't have that in me. I can't do a pre-show Christmas and a TFR Christmas. And that's when you messaged, and I thought, well, we'll just do a simulcast. We might get 20 people, 30 people if we're lucky. We smashed over 100 there. Now I know that is nothing in the end of the day, but it is to me. It means the world to me, especially on our little humble backup channel here. And Kev, I tell you, man, I'm quite impressed. Christmas Eve, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new here, if you're wondering what it's all about, click the subscribe button. We're usually live every day. And then, of course, you can find me on TFR Monday to Thursday and Friday on Freaky Friday. Dude, this has been a good show. 1 hour down, 1 to go.
Make a comment, share, come back again, bring a friend or 2 or 3 or 4, and maybe
More
we'll
the
give you a little
merrier, right?
more
the
than
merrier.
what you're expecting.
Big shout out to Marty in the chat room as well, Kev. Yes. All your fans are in there. Dude, you might not appreciate this, but you are very much loved around everything to do with KBS, whether it's the show when we're on YouTube or TFR or over on the Discord. Telling you, man, you got a bit of a fan club going there, bro.
Well, I just love to bask in all the love that I've witnessed your devotees, your fans, your followers, because I've had that opportunity in the disco to talk to them, and they all show their appreciation for you, and they're all supporting you. And I hope you allow yourself to receive all that love, brother, because it's definitely healing.
At this time of year, I do, Kevin. I'm a very humble man, 363 days a year. But Christmas Eve and Christmas, I'll make an exception, okay? There you go. Now, I'm watching the clock here, and we're going to bring it back. And we're going to go back to the mysterious universe, because it's got some, you know, sinister Christmas encounters with the supernatural now. If that isn't something for tonight's show, I don't know what is. And I'm sure within this little story here, it'll inspire Kevin to think of something to come back with when I wrap this story up. You see, that's how the magic works here on KBS. I'm telling you, man. Here we go, Kev. I'm going to bring it back. I'm glad we went live tonight. Here we go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your number one abnormal, paranormal, supernatural, schizophrenic Kevin Dave Baker show. Number one in this world and in some other countries in the next, as well, as we've established when we get banned from Facebook. But you know, a holiday season would have been really easy for me just to put the feet up, you know, go and binge out on some Christmas tunes or some Christmas movies. And yes, I'm having a glass of Prosecco, I think it is. I don't even know what I'm drinking anymore. It doesn't matter this time of year, right? But no, I thought, we'll do it. We'll go live. And you know what? Boy, oh boy, am I glad we did. Anne was very keen for me to come on and, you know, hang out on Christmas Day. I thought, 50-50. Then Kev reached out to me, and I thought, yes, we'll do it. You were keen for me to come on and do my Christmas story. Not Christmas. This isn't Christmas Day, you see. You see, she says exactly. This is just another working day for KBS, Kev. I tell you, man, she's a taskmaster, Kevin. So she is. Brutal. It's a wonder you can't hear the whip in the background. You know?
I would really like to take the opportunity to say what a fan that I am of Anne, and thank you so much, Pearl and Anne, for giving us this incredible man the precious moments to be in his glory.
Oh, you'll
in
be
our
giving my mum a
reality.
big head right now. She's listening in up there in Ireland. She'll be, oh, Kev, you don't know the dopamine you've just released, man. Oh, you've created an animal up there.
Oh, that's a delight, Miss Pearl.
Yes, indeed. I tell you. They don't call me Norman Bates for nothing, Kevin. They don't call me Norman Bates for nothing.
Supernatural Christmas.
What's your favourite? Have you
Scrooge.
got a favourite creepy Christmas kind of movie?
I've been trying to talk my girls into watching Krampus.
Krampus is
Because we've
pretty
been
cool.
talking about it a little bit.
Do you like Clyde Lewis?
I have mixed feelings.
When
Only,
he
oh,
does his Krampus stuff, when it gets to this time of year, when he gets into Krampus, I swear, maybe I'm biased, but nobody does Krampus like Clyde Lewis.
well,
I love his kind of content, you know, at this time of
I
year in
tried to
particular.
call in once. I tried to call in once, and his screener wouldn't believe that my name was Naysay.
Ron Patton,
And we got,
Ron, my friend Ron. I'm gonna have to have a word with him, Kev.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so we kind of got into it. But then Clyde got back to me, and he's like, because he recognized my name, because I've been on there a couple times. Not like on as a guest, like you've been fortunate enough, but
Jimmy,
I've shared.
Jimmy, he phones in all the time, or used to phone in all the time as well. I've heard him on there.
Well, I shared with him my whole moon obsession, and we actually talked about doing a show about it. But
Clyde's a good guy. I like Clyde. I like him a lot. And of course, he's been kind of kicked off a lot of networks this year as well. It's been a strange
too
old
easy to
year.
be done.
It really is. It really is. And I'm really grateful to TFR. A big thank you to Chris and Cherie. You know, they celebrated their 8th anniversary the other day, Kev. Remember
Yes.
way back in 2012 when the Geos tied
Mount
the knot?
Shasta.
Yeah, I mean, me and you,
With,
we were there. We've been there for that journey.
with White Crow.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people
Oh,
won't
White Crow.
appreciate this, will they? A lot of people probably don't know that before Kev Baker Show was even an idea in my mind. In fact, it was never an idea in my mind. It was Joe and Chris that came up with that idea. But me and Nacy used to be listening to the same networks, to the same shows, didn't we, Kev?
Oracle Broadcasting.
Yeah.
Back in the day when it was the first Truth Frequency show.
Yep.
And then after that, Chris, in his magnificent computer skills, threw it all together. And TFR, 11 years now. Wow.
I remember when they put on their first kind of subscription show, and I jumped on it. I'm like, oh, definitely. It was only a couple of bucks. It was less than a Starbucks. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, definitely. I listen to these guys all the time, and then when it came around to me getting invited on to TFR, I think Chris and Cherie probably thought I was just kind of giving them a bit of patter when I said I used to subscribe to you guys, big fanboy, and then but 2 days later, Chris comes back to me and he's like, you know what? We just found you in the old subscriptions. You really did listen to us years ago. I'm like, no, I really did, man. It's
Yeah.
I think the 100 people here listening on YouTube, the audience that we've got through TFR, that keep coming back day after day, week after week, month after month. And what Chris and Cherie started, it was something pretty unique. And it was a frequency. And it sounds really cliche because we're called Truth Frequency, but there is something about a frequency. And I think that's what brings like-minded people together, or at least that's what keeps them together. We don't all agree around here. I hate being the focal point of anything, as Kev knows. But I think we are all closely on the same frequency. We're very well matched. Call it harmonic, call it something else. But I think that's why people like ourselves, Kevin, and that's a long time we've been doing this, bro. You know, if this was a TV show that we've been following, you're talking the hardcore followers that have been in it more than, 11, 12 years following along. And I think you can only do that when you're well matched with the people that's around you, right? But that doesn't mean we're like all agree with each other. But there's something we do share in common, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's that whole thing of, if you think about a chord, you know, do we want to add harmony to the chord, or do we want to have discord? Because the more the harmony, the more it's enjoyable for everybody. And so this likeness of being, of course, is going to resonate with each other like two guitars in a room together. If you strum one of the guitars, eventually the other guitar will start vibrating as the first guitar.
That's really weird when you think about it, isn't it? Really weird.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Like, how long do we resonate when our strings are strung? You know, do we resonate for just a blimp, or do we resonate throughout the cosmos, where this time is an illusion of back then, right now, or tomorrow? But what about some supernatural Christmas woo?
You know what, dude? You know what, dude? Look at that. I'm just about to pull it up. I'm gonna have to get it back on the screen here. Give me 2 seconds. We had a real something happened. One of my browsers crashed. I know if you're listening on the radio, you're thinking, who cares if one of your browsers crashed? Well, it kind of messed everything up, so I'm gonna have to go back in here and look for. Hang on, I need to add it now. I tell you, Kev, all this technology, all the gear, no idea. That's what it is, man. I'm telling you.
It's that full spectrum of where you can find the love and hate of it, and
Is that what it is?
Well, it's interesting if you look at the whole cycle of it, because you open up a window and then at some point it closes according to the program, but every now and then there's an anomaly in the program, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get an accident, a crash log.
Dude, how did I end up hanging about with brainy people like you? I tell you, man. You see what you get here on the Kev Baker show. You get Kev and Dave that are as dumb as the day is long, and then you get Kev coming in here and dropping wisdom, just sewing in a bit of wisdom here and there, and like he says, a sinister Christmas encounters with the supernatural. Are you ready, Kev? Will we get into a bit of this? It says, now turn down the lights, folks. You know, this is where you want to be kicking back, curling up on the couch, on the sofa. You know, dim the lights down. You probably do it on your mobile phone now with your smart houses, and maybe tell Alexa, turn the lights down, Alexa. Baker is about to woo us with some ghosty stories. Here we go. It's the holiday season, and everyone is looking forward to the festivities and the presents, right? Well, while this season is certainly one of peace and happiness, or at least it's supposed to be, it's also sometimes the season of scary encounters with the unknown, and that's where KBS likes to deal, in scary encounters of the unknown. Here, I have dug up some of the creepier and at times most terrifying brushes with the supernatural at a normally joyous time of year. Ghosts, spectres, and perhaps more. Here is a darker look at Christmas time. Despite the cheerful season of the year, some ghostly Christmas encounters seem to be anything from benevolent, and one such report was related by a witness named Caitlin Williams, who recalls a bizarre and spooky experience from 1996. Oh, they were simpler times, weren't they? Oh, damn. I was in the army then. I think I was getting ready to go to Norway, maybe Florida. Oh, man, to be back then right now. Oh, come on. Back when she was living with her parents in Bluffton, Indiana. Now, she claims that from when they first moved into the house, when she was a child, there was something not quite right about the place, and she constantly felt an intense feeling of being watched, like eyes boring into her, especially when she was lying in the bed alone in the dark. Now, this went on for a while, and while unsettling, was not truly scary yet. But that would change one day at Christmas time, and the witness said, one year around Christmas time, I was having a friend spend the night. The heat had just shut off briefly, and she and I were sitting in the living room watching television when the temperature dropped substantially. As I rose to turn up the heat, the Christmas tree began to shake violently. Ornaments were falling off right and left, and she and I were terrified. We ran upstairs and lay down on my bed. My white cat curled up with us, and my door was open slightly. When I gazed out at the dark hallway, I was terrified to see a tall, white figure run down the hall. I turned to my friend, and she acknowledged that she had seen the exact same thing. She never spent the night, ever again. After this rather sinister and startling event, things seemed to have quieted down for several years until the witness came down with what she calls a chronic illness, and paranormal activity began to make itself known again, and it became especially pronounced and frightening when she turned 18 and her grandfather passed away. Now, this activity covered a broad spectrum from moving objects to anomalous noises to creepy shadow figures and apparitions prowling the house. And she says of it, it started out with the voices. It was like a television had been turned on, and there was a flurry of voices coming from downstairs, or even more frighteningly, outside my room. My parents were always asleep when this would happen, and their room was right next to mine with a vent, so I could hear my parents sleeping next door. I would get up and check all the rooms, but there was no TV on, nothing to account for the voices. I was getting more and more scared as the voices started happening every night. That's when I started seeing shadow figures. They varied in size, but they were always human shaped, except for once. One night I was walking out of my room with my cat in my arms when she began to growl ferociously. She never does this. She's normally an extremely docile cat, and I was shocked to see her acting so. That's when I looked down the hall and saw a shadow the size of a large dog run down the hall quickly. We don't have a dog. We had owned one before I became ill, but were forced to give it away due to the fact that we could no longer provide it with the proper care that it deserved. My cat growled and growled until the shadow disappeared. For all the other times that I saw shadow figures, they never took the form of a dog again. From that point on, the shadow figures were strictly human-shaped, some tall, some child-sized, but they frightened me to death. I would lie in my bed at night, tortured by the fear I was going insane because no one else was experiencing this. When I confessed my experiences to my parents, they took me to a psychiatrist who could find nothing wrong with me. I continued seeing shadow figures up until the last few months that we lived there. Indeed, these strange experiences would stop when they moved to a new home, and the witness still vividly remembers this malevolent invasion that all started one night at Christmas time. Another rather ominous account. Now, Kev, let me stop there before we get to the next story, but what do you make of that? These shadow figures that, Christmas aside, these are things that are all year round, okay? What do you make of it all, man?
Have yourself
A
a
merry
scary little
shadow
Christmas.
figure.
I I have only experienced one time where I felt like a shadow entity occurred in my peripheral. I was over at a friend's house, and they had some people over, and I was sitting there at the dining room table, and from my right side, I could see where the little hallway is to the bedrooms and stuff, and I thought I saw something kind of go down the hallway from one room into the other room. And I made a quick assessment of everybody, and it's like, okay, everybody's right here by this table, and the other two people are in the kitchen behind me. So what was it? I do not know. But if I may indulge you, I'll tell you about the one time where I felt a negative presence, and I couldn't tell you if I was in that full belief, but as it got closer, well, the story is I had to go to the St. Paul campus because they were having a Native American honorary thing for all the Native students at University of Minnesota. And so I had to take the bus there to the St. Paul campus, the agricultural department. So we go there, we go to this event, and then I'm taking the bus home. Now, I've never had a challenge with being out late. You know, I've been out till 3 o'clock in the morning in my wheelchair in Minneapolis and never felt threatened, you know, even in kind of the rougher parts of town. And so I'm taking the bus home, and it's probably about 12:20, 12:30, something like that. I'm sitting in the bus shelter and I'm reading. I'm an avid reader. This is when I could see still. And then all of a sudden, out of my left peripheral, I saw some kind of almost like the Terminator-esque, like when it's cloaked, where it was like a disturbance of the energy, you know, like a shimmering, you know, like it's there but not visible something. And I saw this out of the corner of my left eye, and the minute I turned towards it, it felt, or I thought I saw it immediately like zoom right to where the street lamp was. Like it got into the brightness of the street lamp. And then I was just kind of like, oh, that nothing. So I go back reading.
Just nonchalant. Yeah, it's nothing, you know.
Well, in my head, I'm like, nah, okay, you know, but this is like a good 400 yards down the street, you know, that I witnessed this. And I'm like, you know, it could be a floater in my eye or something like that.
Oh, I
So I
hate
go
them,
back-
dude. I hate them. What's that all about? What are those floaters
Yeah.
about, by the way? That's a show into itself, man.
Right. So then I go back to reading, and then sure enough, I swear I see it again. And then it's like the minute I like turned my head towards it, it like zoomed super fast to the next light. Like it was just trying to move slowly to the next one. And so then it came closer, and now I'm like, okay, is this something there? Because now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep focused on the book and not turn my head at all, but look straight through my side, my peripheral, you know. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, that's something moving closer. And by this time it's like 4 streetlights down from me. And I start getting panicky because I'm feeling like, is this like something that like I'm the prey and it's stalking me? And then sure enough, as it got like between 3 and 2 lights there, next thing you know, the bus comes. And then the bus comes and I get on the bus, you know, and then as soon as I got on the bus, I'm like looking behind, you know, to see if something's trying to jump light to light to light to get closer to the bus. But that was one time when I was literally like, what the heyday is going on here?
I just found some crazy music for that, man. Have some story, dude. That was awesome. Listen, what led up to my exorcism deliverance from Bill Bean was a shadow, dude. I'll never forget that. Just walking out of the room one night here, walked away from the computer, walked towards the kitchen, and we're in a really small flat here, Kevin. It's like a tenement, we call it. So there's 6 flats in one. It's 2 bedroom flats. You got a kitchen, you got the living room. So you walk out the living room, and on your right hand side, you've got a bedroom right next to it, and the toilet's at 90 degrees. And then you walk down a corridor towards the front door. Kevin's bedroom's right up by the front door on the right hand side, and the kitchen's on the left hand side. So I walk out the living room and I start speaking to Kevin because I seen him in the toilet, you know, and I'm thinking, come on, man.
Come on, man.
Shut the toilet door when you're doing that, you know? And then what really freaked me out was when Kevin answered me, his voice didn't come from that thing I seen in the toilet. His voice came from within his bedroom. I swear, that's when I almost, like, all of me stopped. I'm not just making this up for dramatic effect. You think about that. You're expecting to hear somebody answering you. You're not even expecting it. It's just, and then the voice comes from somewhere else. But wait, I thought I just seen them back there in the toilet, different direction. What the hell? And of course, that was like months after the whole visit to Crowley's house, and you know, getting ready to write a chapter for Bill Bean's Stranger in Fiction 2 book. I'm going to base it on that investigation, I call it that very loosely, that me and my brother and Greggles, he knows who he is out there, that we conducted, took part in, endured when we went there. And it's really had me thinking about it again. But I honestly do believe, Kevin, I can't prove it, nobody could ever prove it. I think that was something I brought home with me from Boleskine House, man. Don't know what it was, but I really do believe that, you know.
I would concur, because if you think of it logically, you know how when Pearl makes that one meal, that the minute you start smelling that meal, you can just feel like Pavlov's dog. You start drooling and you're like, I'm ready to get into this food. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Panting like a dog here, you know.
Right. And so when
sounded
we have
pretty
that,
wrong, that Kev. That sounded really wrong, man.
It sounded so wrong. It was absolutely right.
Exactly.
So when we get that desire, that ravenous, you know, for that expectation, well, would this not be the same for our wants and our desires? So if we look at these entities, whether we get caught up in the semantics of what they are, if we happen to resonate at that desire or that ravenous where they're like, oh, what's that I smell? You know, and so maybe it's not even you. Maybe it's a friend
what
of you.
I tried to do, Kev, I tried to get away from, like you say, the entities. I tried to look at it from the energetic level. And I just look at the energy. And then people, they can put their own labels on it as jinn, demons, angels, whatever they interpret it as. But I think we're dealing with energies. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Well, and this is where, you know, I talk about the Holy Trinity of positive, neutral, and negative. And if these energies, whatever they resonate as, or what we label them are, if they are negative, then in that whole properties of the definition of magnetism, of attraction and repelling, then just like our desires for Pearlie's wonderful meal or Anne's meal, you know, these entities could have that desire of us. And maybe there's someone who comes and frequents you that has your residue on them.
Hold that thought, brother. We are almost at the end of another segment. Yes, indeed. And this has been our very creepy Christmas. This has been awesome, man. I had like planned on doing ghost stories and things, just sitting here reading stuff tonight, but when Kev messaged, I thought, no, this feels good, and now I know why. It turned out to be a really good show, and we've got one more segment to go right here on KBS Live on our Christmas cracker. Yes, we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
The entities come back.
Those pesky entities. Yes, indeed. No, but yeah, the shadow entities. So many people experience those buggers, man. It's not good. Can I just thank Lauren? Lauren just dropped us a little PayPal there. Thank you, Lauren. I'm going to read out Lauren's message, actually. It sounds really, really nice. Hang on. Thank you for your streams. They really do make a difference for a lot of us and get something to laugh about at the end of a crappy year. I hope you, Anne, and the Baker family have a Merry Christmas. Lauren, that absolutely makes my show. That, you know, as much as it's awesome hanging out with you here, Kevin, it's awesome anyway. But that there, I mean, that little message, that's what it's all about, dude. You know, pretty cool, pretty cool.
Thank you, Lauren, you said, right?
Yeah, it was Lauren, but Anne's really put out because A, she doesn't have an E in her name, and B, she's not part of the Baker clan yet. This is her trying to make me feel guilty for not taking her down the aisle yet, Kev. Well, listen, that's a whole story into itself, man. I mean, what's it all about, dude? If you live, it's another show altogether. Let's not go there. Not on Christmas Eve, man. Yeah. So thank you, Lauren. Yes. One segment to go, Kev. Where would you like to go when we come back? I've got another little creepy, sinister Christmas story, and then we can use that as a springboard if you like.
Sure, bring it on.
Sound good, man?
Sounds wonderful.
So do you think any of these shadow characters are good things? No.
I would like to believe that everything has the opportunity to proclaim into the positiveness. And so as we have humans that are the full spectrum of positive, neutral, and negative, logically I would think that these entities would be positive, neutral, and negative, and I would much rather be in the presence of these positive energies than the negative ones.
Now, just before we go back to the network, did anyone catch this earlier on? This happened just yesterday. We've had all the alignments and everything going on in the sky, so I found this interesting. Mary DeCina, our resident astrologist, she sent me this. Giant fireball streaks across the sky and crashes on the ground in China. It's like one of these Chelyabinsk ones, Kev. A decent-sized bolide came in, lit up the night sky, plunged into the ground. We had a seismic reading from it, from what I believe. But there's the Earthid meteor shower going on right now, folks. So I'm not saying this is like, oh, it's some horseman of the apocalypse or anything like that. But again, it just shows you what a perilous kind of precarious position it's to be in when you're just flying about in a rock in space, Kev.
The minute you mentioned it, Speculation Island, that I saw over the port bow, instantly sent some smoke signals that were like, would you be surprised if it was like a United States satellite that China just blew out of the sky?
Well, listen, I'm waiting for first contact to happen, so we've only got a couple of days left. We'll get there. Here we go.
They're back.
We are back. Well done, Macy. Great timing. Listen, this is the Kev Baker Show. We're live this Christmas Eve here. If you're still this side of the date line, if you're in France or anywhere east of that, and a big shout out to our Australian contingent. Yes. Merry Christmas to you. And we are 29 minutes away from Christmas here in the UK. I hope you're all having a good day. Look, I have to thank you all. Done the simulcast today. I really didn't think we would get many listeners on TFR or YouTube. It's Christmas Eve, it's the holidays. Granted, 2020 has been a different year for various reasons, but we've had like steadily 100 over on YouTube. We've got all of the usual numbers out there on TFR as well. And I just want to thank you all for being here. Not just that, but for hanging out with me throughout the year. It's been a long, tough year. One like none of us have ever lived through before. But to all of you that's hung with me on our particular little journey, whatever the heck we're doing here, massive thank you. And let's look forward to an even better 2021. So, Nacy, how about you let me get a little drink of my Prosecco here while we get ready for another sinister Christmas story. But before we get to the Christmas story, let me throw this one at you, all right? We had like some kind of meteor event over China yesterday, lit up the night sky, caused seismic readings. It was like something out of Chelyabinsk in 2013. Remember that thing? Of course, I know you're my resident sky dude. So what do you make of this, Kev?
Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might know what the heck is going on. But not surprisingly at all, when they talk about, for every one meteorite they see, 100 gone by, and depending on what trajectory it comes towards us, whether it's coming from the sun or from beyond the sun, who's to say? And maybe this great conjunction junction, what's the function of Saturn, Kronos, Jupiter, Zeus, having an alignment with the heavenly sun?
Saturn's an interesting. We mentioned Saturnalia earlier on, Kev, right? But Saturn is you could do a full 10-hour show on Saturn, probably, right? From the
And then
rings
Kronos.
to the Chronos aspect,
And
time.
then Set.
Yep.
And it is pretty incredible when you take that opportunity to look at these celestial bodies and how well they were able to set the stage with those lights on the strings.
Do you think
And the
Saturn at
whole
one point
plate.
was like the second sun, the golden age sun in our electric? And me and you both agree it's a very electric universe, right?
Well, believe that Saturn at one time, because of its huge size, and if you look at the historical mythos of Saturn, Kronos, Set, and they talk about how it once devoured its children. And if you think of this in the metaphor of how it allegedly had all of these satellites or moons that are around it, if there was a huge disruption that caused the entire solar system to be askew, then all of these satellites would collide. And over the billions of years, because of the Coriolis force of the spinning of the top, all of these particulates would eventually come together in like a record or the rings. And depending on the density, just like a centrifuge, when they're trying to do the separation of whatever, when they're spinning it,
Yep.
so the rings occur. And
You've ever looked into that, the ring makers of Saturn, Kev?
a little bit,
Yeah.
but just the whole metaphor of, Saturn and the whole rings and earrings and the judges and their robes.
Yeah, the
and
wedding ring. Yeah, the Saturnalian Brotherhood. The person who really inspired or got me into all of that kind of stuff, I think it was Jordan Maxwell. Remember listening to him at work? Yeah, I listened to him at work. We mentioned Chris and Cherie earlier on. I remember them hanging out with Jordan Maxwell on their show. And then when I got him on, I always kind of kick myself. Jordan Maxwell came too early in the Kev Baker show, if that makes sense. I was still kind of finding my way. I was still kind of learning the ropes. And I think I would do a far better job now of talking to Jordan than I did then. But even that early show, Kev, all that stuff about the courts, back and forth like a tennis court. And you got your judge, your umpire in the middle, and then he goes into the banking system, and it's like water, and it hits off the river banks. And dude, I tell you, it's a weird, wonderful world, isn't it?
I used to talk to Jordan Maxwell about every 3 to 6 months. And for these conversations, like we would have like 2-3 hour conversations. And because of this, I found out that he had a favorite steakhouse in Burbank, California. And so I would call them and I would get him gift certificates to the steakhouse because he would literally have like a 3-hour conversation. And so I would get him these gift certificates, and it's horrific what happened to him and the individual that claimed to want to help him, get all of his information together and put it digitally onto the websites and stuff.
I got like copyright strike for the shows I done with him because the people that were meant to be helping him were like ripping him off and try to claim everything as their own. And I know he went to court for it and everything else. And that's why I had to take those videos down from my YouTube. But listen, I want to give a big shout out to Oliver. He says, "Happy Christmas, Kev. Best of wishes to you and the family. Thank you for all the great shows that you put together. No, Oliver, thank you. And again, I thank all of the TFR audience, YouTube audience, everyone that's here today. We are all on the truth frequency. And it's not just a name. It's more than just a name. Very much more than just a name. And listen, we're going to go back now. We'll get a little bit more of these sinister Christmas stories, Kev, before we hit the end of the show. But again, want to thank everyone for being here today. Kev, I swear, I honestly thought we'd be like me, you, and a couple of people in a telephone booth. That'd be it. I thought we'd be single figures listening to today's show, but over 100 again on YouTube, and you know the thousands on TFR. So I tell you, very, very, very humbling indeed.
Well, the resident frequency that they are sending in our vicinity is absolutely overwhelming. So gratitude, as we say in Anishinaabe, chimi gwich.
Algo says the truth frequency is the love frequency. I don't know. Tris and Cherie, they just kind of taught me to look at the world in a particular way. And they taught me to question everything, even what I think I know. Question that. Be chill about it, be cool about it. And I forgot that sometimes along the way. But then when you start to appreciate the bigger picture and the simulation game type aspect to everything going on, I think that's the best way to approach things, you know? Tackle everything, look at it from 360, appreciate other people's opinions, and from there, it's all gravy, right? So if we go over here, it says, indeed, in fact, let me pull it up here. There we go. Indeed, these strange experiences would stop. Oh, okay, we've had that bit. Okay, here we go. Okay. Another rather ominous account comes from a witness who posted in Pinterest, who claims that one Christmas night when he was a child, he got up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom when he heard an undefinable voice whisper in the darkness. There's nothing quite like a whispering voice in the darkness, let me tell you folks. In fact, let me put some scary background music on for this. We've got whispering people, Kev. He hears dead people. Anyway, here we go. It says he looked up and was startled to see a bright red light shining against the wall at the bottom of the stairs. He was transfixed by this odd light. As no one was awake and there was no discernible source to it, and to his child's mind he began to think it was actually Santa Claus. The witness says he crept downstairs following the anomalous light and expecting to see Santa down there unloading presents. But this is where things would get rather strange and terrifying. The witness says of what happened next. Quote, that's when I heard him. A very strong, masculine voice. Different from the first. Not at all like my father's. That's not to say he isn't masculine. It just was distinctly different. It said, stop right now. Go back up those stairs. I listened and I turned around, and what happened next I'm not sure I would believe if someone had told me to this day. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. Holy shamoly. When we awoke the next morning, the poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, that my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs, some broken from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been the victim of some home invasion, and my sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broken in, and there did not seem to be any reason that this happened. It was then I saw it, and I kept quiet about it because I was so terrified that I could not force words out of my mouth. And yes, I'm actually making up some words as we go along here to make it even better. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were 3 indentations where the finish on the wood had been worn almost as if it was in a forceful grip. Something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That was when that was what the bang was. Now, was this a home invasion, as his parents had feared, or something else? One similar and very menacing encounter within somebody's home was relayed to me by a reader quite recently, and this happened on the night of Christmas Eve. The witness told me that he and his wife and 2 children had gone to bed for the night, but that he suddenly awoke in the middle of the night and a cold sense of dread washing over him. A profound sense that something was not right. Oh, if you've experienced the paranormal, you know what that feeling's like. You know it. You're probably feeling it right now, right? So he saw what happened to be a shadow drift out of the room into the hall, and he at first took it to be his dog, who usually slept in the same room as them, and he went to see what was up. That was when he heard something rummaging around downstairs, and he froze in startled panic. He told me of the bizarre sequence of the events that would unfold. It sounded at first like somebody just sort of shuffling around down there, moving things around. I knew it wasn't my wife. Oh, scrolled off it there. Dang. But I knew it wasn't my wife because she was still fast asleep. Now, I checked on the kids and they were fast asleep too. So my immediate thought was, considering the shadow I had seen, was that for some reason the dog was stumbling around down there. I looked for the dog in the bedroom just to be sure that he was there, only he was cowering against the corner, seemingly terrified of something, but not barking or whimpering, just frozen. The sound downstairs got a little more urgent, although it was not loud enough to wake anyone else up. And I was about to wake my wife up, but I didn't want to worry her. I decided to quietly go down the stairs enough for me to peek into the living room, and that was when I saw it. There in the dark were 2 glowing orbs, red eyes set within a dark shape that rose up to stare at me before blinking into nothingness. I was breathless and turned on the lights, but there was nothing there but presents that had been tossed about all over the place. I searched every inch of the room and there was no sign of anyone. No sign of a break-in, nothing. Whatever that thing was, and I'm pretty sure it was not Santa. There sometimes seems to be something strange afoot outdoors as well, as we can see in the rather sinister experience reported to Stoke-on-Trent Live by a witness named Keith from Stoke-on-Trent in England. Now, he claims that one icy evening, just a few days before Christmas 2016, he was out shopping for last-minute gifts for his wife and child. Now, at the time, he was walking through the frigid air on the top of a place called Dresden Bank and along Queen's Park. And it was so cold that no one else was out on the street at the time. At some point, he noticed through the mist of his breath a tall, dark figure approaching from the opposite direction along a stone wall, who appeared to be wearing some sort of antiquated, old-fashioned clothing with a, quote, long coat on, a stick, and what looked very much like a top hat. Now, as the two passed each other, Keith claims he looked up and was horrified to see that the stranger had a face completely devoid of any face or features. Just a plain, dark oval. When this bizarre sight passed, Keith whirled around, but the faceless man was simply gone. He would say of this odd experience, it wasn't like he walked away. It was as if he just vanished. It was and still is the most terrifying experience of my life. Most people won't believe me, of course, but that night I found out that ghosts are real. And each Christmas I will remember that encounter. Now, Kevin, that one there. There's something about a face that's devoid of features and things like that. But what do you make of these kind of creepy encounters that you're listening to here?
I'm glad in the sense that they happen to somebody else and not myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel a little bad saying such a statement, because, I mean, as we go through these discernments and we get these inklings or feelings of the presence of something around us, it's like, let it be something positive, because I cannot get myself caught up into that because I'm blind and because I'm on my own a lot of times. Because in my home, I know practically every squeak in the floors around my house. There's times when all of a sudden there's a squeaking on my floor. And I have to just relax and accept it is what it was and not go down the rabbit hole of the possibility of somebody being in my home.
You don't want it to be some sleeping, snoring ghost, man. That's the last thing you want in there, Kev. I'm telling you. So listen, we'll go back to this, right? It says an encounter with yet another insidious entity. We love insidious entities here on KBS. Was reported on ThoughtCo and experienced by an Australian witness named Paulina T. What she says allegedly happened when she was visiting family in Samoa for the Christmas holidays. She was with her cousin and some of her friends at the time, and they were playing hide and seek at a graveyard, as you do, near the town church. Now, this seems a bit odd, but things would get even odder still. Oh, we need our creepy background music on for this one, Kev. We're in the graveyard now, as the witness explains what happened as they waited, hiding there in the dark. Oh, here we go. Since we were all hiding in the graveyard, we all found our way around in the light that the church cast onto the graveyard. We all hid in the shadows and waited for the boy. We could all hear the boy coming, so we kept quiet. The boy was pretty loud, so we watched what he was making a fuss about. He'd walked into the church as though, as he thought that his brother was hiding there. Now, as he walked into the church, he later told us he saw a boy standing right at the front of the altar. He didn't know if it was his brother because the boy's back was turned. He ran up and he tapped the boy on the shoulder, and as soon as he did this, the strange boy disappeared. Our friend fainted. We went home to tell his parents, and we returned to the boy's parents to find him still lying there, dead still. The parents took the boy home, and we never played in the graveyard again at night. We later found out that the boy's brother had been at home the whole time and hadn't been at the church at all. What really scared us was the boy who fainted has been ill since that night and still hasn't recovered to this day. Whoever it was in the church must have been pretty mad that we kids had disturbed him. What sort of ominous entity was this? Was it a ghost or something else? Who knows? These sorts of creepy encounters are certainly not anything anyone wants to experience at Christmas time. And they are someone made, all the more menacing precisely because they clash so loudly with the otherwise jovial ambience that this time of year is supposed to bring. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, these spooky Christmas tales are enough to make you think twice about the odd noises in the dark, or that barely glimpsed shadow across the room. Ooga booga, Kev. Ooga booga. We're almost out of time, bro. We're almost there. It's almost. We are 7 minutes away in the UK from the big red fella making his visit to children all over the country. How cool is that? And yes, Santa is an essential worker. Awesome.
Well, isn't it Santa just went into corporate, what is that called when two companies become merger with
Did
Amazon?
he merge with Rudolph? Did he merge with Rudolph the reindeer? I heard they've been merging for years, but you know.
Well, the idea of Santa Claus, as I told my children, I would never lie to them about Santa Claus, and we use the ideology of Santa Claus is giving without having to be known. So when you give anonymously, that's like Santa Claus in a sense, you know, where you're not giving for the praise of giving, you're giving because it's the right thing to do.
I wish I was in that position, Kev, to be a giver. Usually in recent years, I've found myself having to be the taker, you know, giving a couple of shout outs tonight on PayPal. And, you know, it's only thanks to the generosity of people listening to this show that we're able to keep going. But there's so much to be gained from what Kevin's talking about there, but not the giving of a public sort. It's not about getting brownie points or clicks or shares about what you're doing. It's about that being hidden, not wanting the kind of attention that comes from publicly doing these things. And I wish, and I know that one day I'll get to a position, Kev, where I'm able to do that. But you know, it's only thanks to really generous people who do it for the sake of supporting the show. They don't do it to be shouted out. They don't do it for any other reason other than for some reason they believe in what we're doing here. And I think karma, if you want to call it that, and the way the universe, or the simulation as I call it, the way it works is there is great reward. When you put in work like that, I think you get it back tenfold in other ways. Especially if you don't go seeking attention for those little acts of generosity or those good things, those positive moves that you make. Positive, negative, and neutral, as Kev says. And I think there's a lot to that, Kev. I think that's one of the kind of rules of the game. When you put in like that, you get it back. But there's the music! Can you believe it? That means we're 3 minutes away from Santa arriving down your chimney. Thank you for being here on this
Merry
no,
Christmas.
Kev, no, woo, woo, woo. And a Merry Christmas to all of you. We're out of here, folks. Later. Yeah. Now, I had to get the TFR disconnected there before we ended up in some ads and probably copyrighted material and things like that. But Kevin, thank you for joining me today, man. It was a bit of an impromptu thing, the simulcast aspect of today's show, but I'm glad we done it. I really am. And I'm totally blown away by the number of people we got. Usually on... I love YouTube. I'm an addict. And when you go looking for live shows around this time of year, it's usually not the same kind of thing you're used to every day of the week. So I wondered if we would be even worth our time going live today on YouTube, but it was. The numbers absolutely prove that. Still over 100 people here. Probably to hear you more than me, Kevin, but either way, thank you for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have a brilliant Christmas tomorrow, as do, I hope, all of you people, savages. Yes, if you want to be a savage, click the join button. You'll find it on Sunday. But no, thank you, Kevin, for being here today. Top notch, my good friend.
Well, the dopamine, the positivity, the love that I receive from having these opportunities to share because I care is plenty enough reward. So thank you, sir. It's always a delight in my darkness to be here with Universe.
I love you being here, dude. I love you being here. And listen, whether you're celebrating Christmas from a Christian point of view, whether you're into the Buddha, the Wookiee, Krishna, I don't really care. As long as you're here and you're not doing any harm to anyone, you're trying to do good, you're looking for the answers, who cares? This is a celebration. It's a time of year when we can turn that frown upside down, whatever you believe in. And I'll be back here. Maybe I'll be back for an hour tomorrow. But it is Christmas Day. So I know Anne's cooking lots of good food. And I might just be comatose by the time it's time to go live. So listen, have a good day tomorrow. I'll be back when I'm back. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you to everyone out there. And we'll play some when I wait. Hang on. What I'll do is, right, I'll go over to YouTube. Then I'll go to their really, really brilliant audio library, right? And I will play one of their Christmas songs. Yes, I will. Kevin, you know how great their free music is, right? Right?
If you know the words, sing along.
Yeah, absolutely. Try to find one we might know the words to. Happy Little Elves? What is that even about? I don't know, but that's the one that I kind of have tuned into.
We are happy elves, blah, 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 blah. That was just...
No, I'm not happy with that, dude.
Those elves are too jazzy. Jazz hands.
Bit of jazz? Yeah,
Not
bit
bad.
of jazz to take us out, man. Bit of jazz. I like that, dude.
That can work.
I like it. Remember, folks, give that person that you love a big, huge hug. If you're not with them, as much as I hate social media, go and drop them a message. Maybe it's somebody you've not heard from all year. Go and drop them a message. Sometimes we don't appreciate just how much it might affect the other person when we reach out. And that in itself can be probably worth more than anything you could buy anyone for any Christmas. So if you do nothing else for me, go and look for somebody on your social media you haven't spoke to for a while and give them a message, especially if you know they live alone at this time of year. All right? And we'll listen to the dulcet tones of the jazz music on the way out today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being KBS. Holy night.
Smithers, table of four.
Remember,
Smithers,
get your lighters up in
table
the
of
air,
four.
folks. I want to see the lighters up in the air. Oh, yeah. Remember, have a great Christmas. I'll probably be